Hi, my name is Daniel Titus. I'm speaking in my mum's room, okay? I'm going to tell you a little story about myself. Throughout these past decades, um, I'm not saying I've been struggling with mental health, but I have basically now had problems with my mental health, basically. And basically, the thing is, basically, though, I want to basically condemn what happened in Southport last summer. But let's go back to my first line. The reason why I wanted to highlight this, thing now because it's going to be my 25th birthday tomorrow. I want to highlight this to the media basically but before that day comes. When I was 17, when I was at Saula Cabana's age, I felt I wanted to kill somebody. I felt I wanted to basically murder somebody at his age. But the fact was, I didn't. Do you know why? Because I believe, and I still believe today basically, killing is wrong. You can bring out any beliefs that you want in this world. You can bring out anything that you want in this world. You can bring out, all beliefs, make money, do all that basically, but paying any sort of consequence whatsoever. But in my opinion, basically, though, where our country is becoming, basically, I'm very passionate about my country. I feel, in some ways, what is our country becoming like? Is it becoming like people from well and privileged backgrounds, or well and truly unprivileged backgrounds, or basically are living through a society, where that I agree fundamentally, not saying I agree fundamentally with what Donald Trump says basically, but I agree fundamentally. When it comes down to crime, basically, what Atswell Cabana did, basically. I said this year, basically, not on social media, but I predicted, basically, earlier this year, basically. I said, basically, I bet you this guy's autistic, and he was autistic, and so am I. I'm autistic, but not just that, basically, though. I also I've been realizing basically over the last couple of years or so, especially where I live in Croydon, basically, in my opinion, that in some ways there is a problem, in my opinion, with the autistic act in our society, because many people want to basically bring out their views, bring out their temperament, but this last year or so, I feel sick. I feel sick like I've never felt sick before in my entire life. I felt sick because the fact is, basically, though, not because what that bastard actually did, not because what, basically, in my opinion, basically, the way it was caught out on social media, but the fact, basically, though, he was autistic and he didn't even show remorse for what he did. And I think, when people are emotional, they don't know what they're doing, basically. And because I'm turning 25 tomorrow, basically, I'm going to be 25 years of age tomorrow, I strongly believe, people deserve a second chance in life. I believe stronger than more than anything, people deserve a second chance in life because the fact is, basically, though, I'm not saying that as Willie Cabana does, he does not deserve a second chance. He does not. Many things, I think he should be hanged for what he's done. But what I feel, basically, in terms of how society's working, basically, well, Keir Starmer will never understand, even though we can like him all over him, basically, in my opinion. You know, he doesn't understand what it means to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning, have to pay ever more taxes, and go to bed at 11 o'clock at night, like Nigel Farage does. And basically, my opinion is, though, not only, the misstep, you know, in the first few weeks of the Labour government, basically, it was the way they demonised social media. It was the way they demonised our intelligence, the way I demonised our police for basically standing up against free speech in our society. The fact is, my opinion is, though, I'm going to try 25 tomorrow, and regardless what age you are, and regardless what motives that man's mind, basically, I think of it, I've been betrayed in my entire life, basically, but I would never commit murder on that fast scale as that. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying this is far right. I'm not saying it's basically, a tragedy. But of course, it is a tragedy in my opinion. But if that was my risk, though, I feel like this is the biggest. I think this is the biggest, mass murder I've ever seen in my lifetime. And the fact is, basically, though, you may thought free speech is not available. You may thought free speech is not going to basically, stop us from winning, the wars of freedom. I believe in freedom, respect, dignity, and retirement. And, I look back at the Labour government over the last year or so, and I look back at this first year of the Labour government still. I feel absolutely sick what I've done to our culture in this country in this first year of this Labour government, these last 14 months. I must admit the Tories did a bad job in 14 years, but Labour have done a lot more worse job in 14 months. And the fact is, basically, though, I'm not going to vote Conservatives and Labour in the next election. I'm actually going to vote for reform. Because, in my opinion, though, I'm not saying it because I want to beat the establishment. I'm saying it because the fact is, basically, in society, we've been let down by too many governments. Somebody who speaks their mind, but never doing what they're supposed to do. Keir Starmer says we'll judge him by his actions, not words. Words mean like a piece of shit as far as they're concerned when you don't mean them. And that's why I'm coming to say, basically, when I was basically at Muni Cabana's age, I felt I wanted to do what he did, basically. But basically, though, I never did, because the fact is, basically, though, regardless of the realm to live, regardless of of security, regardless if you are afraid. Because basically, I always think the worst case scenario when it comes down to happening, basically. And the fact is, basically, in my opinion, basically, though, I am only appalled what's happened in our society today and over the last 14 months. What's happened under our security, what's happened with our integrity, what's happened in terms of, blating the same rules, a politician's no better than any other politician. I don't think like that. Look at what Donald Trump's doing in America. And don't please, in the mainstream media, do not call me far right. I think Donald Trump in America, yeah, his politics may be divisive. His policies may be, in terms of taking away people's human rights, basically, and reproductions in America, basically. But the cornerstone of his society, basically, though, yeah, is people like that person who killed Charlie Kirk actually said to myself, basically, I'm going to make this speech the day before my 25th birthday, because from tomorrow onwards, basically, though, yeah, if I commit a crime as like mass murder, I will be reserving the rest of my quarter of my next life behind bars. And the fact is, basically, though, yeah, I really I'm not going to, but I really, 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 really hope, because there's only so many lines in society that people can cross, and so many lines that people can cross through art, to inspire other criminals. And the way you take away our free speech, I'm not voting for reform because of that. I'm voting for reform basically because my opinion is, though, I voted for Brexit. I wanted Brexit done in 2016. I wanted Brexit. I was the person who supported Brexit. I was the person who wanted Brexit, not because I was racist. Same we say about any other conservative politician, because we believe in protecting our borders, standing up for our freedom and our democracy. And you know what? I feel more honoured now than I did a decade ago about getting the real implementations done, basically, in terms of getting Brexit done, about getting our borders checked out, about getting our law and order system in this country set it out for the people. And it's not about a win for the establishment. It's not about a win for for good hard working people. It's a win for good people. People who basically become role models. People who actually come and do turn their lives around. People who know what is right and what is wrong. Free speech does cross the line. I do agree with that. But I believe in liberal intolerance. I believe what is said is not by somebody else's actions. What I say basically, by actions is more actions are more consequential than words. And what I say to our country, what I say to our people. So I feel sick. I feel sick how our country's become, basically. And you know what? I don't agree with all these far right people. One thing I do agree with, basically, about some of them, though, basically, our country has been invaded by mass immigration. And the fact is, basically, though, in my opinion, I feel absolutely sick how our country's becoming. Yes, we need more migration, but we need more people out of the criminal justice system who speak English accent, who are born in this country, black, blood and blue, basically, who are speak English, understand English, and actually understand what it actually means to be British. Similar to Rishi Sunak, similar to Kenny Beginot, similar basically to other diverse politicians in our society, similar to people like Dawn Butler on the Labour Party, similar to, what I basically grew up in my society. Because in my opinion, I can tell you basically, Keir Starmer, yeah, his deputy prime minister now called David Lammy, actually knew my old mentoring service, Mighty Men of Valor. He knew a person called Frederick Clark back in the early 2000s. Although they trained together as a lawyer, I do not know. But what I can say basically, though, is it doesn't matter what colour skin you are. As long as basically, though, we want people in our country to speak English accents. Don't care what skin colour you are. We don't care. I don't give a monkey's what skin colour you are. I wouldn't give a damn as far as I'm concerned. I don't care if you're orange. I don't care basically if you're mixed race. Black, Asian. I don't care. But the amount of people who come into our country, don't speak English, don't share our values. That's why I'm voting for Reform UK. Because people like Andrew Tate, I don't think he's a bad influence on so many people in this country, in my opinion. In my opinion, though, speak English accent, but people are inspired by him because he believes he's a victory against the establishment. I'm not against the establishment. I'm against people, who are trying to recognise our society and turn it into an anti-free speech nation. I will not tolerate that under any circumstances whatsoever. Yes, freedom of speech has a line, but it's a line you do not cross under any circumstances. But the fact is, though, people take freedom of speech online on weaponizing social media companies like Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and thinking they know what's best in their country and beyond. Let me tell you something now. And I want to tell you something very, 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 very proper. You do not represent our country. You do not represent our communities. You do not represent our law and order in any way at all. And you know, I believe our country has more better chance of freedom of speech and obviously it's in line to freedom of speech, but you know, I believe our country, the best medicine for freedom of speech is Reform UK. Because we know crime on our streets, like muggings, stabbings, rape, murder. What I've seen Epping, you know, that rape basically, you know, the police not dealing with their actual issues. They're not combining the solving issue. They're detaining it basically because they think, they think they know the actual answers to our problems. They know basically, in our opinion, basically, I'm not anti-police. I am proper pro-police. I'm pro-police. I'm pro-migrants. But I'm not pro. I'm pro-anti. Not pro-anti. Sorry. I'm pro-anti-foreign language. That's what I stand for. And if people don't like the way I'm saying this right now, in my opinion, so be it. But I can tell you something, basically, though, yeah? I can tell you something about the Nottingham person, basically, though, yeah? Who basically, in my opinion, basically, though, he didn't take his medication. And I feel basically intense this year. And I haven't more been since the pandemic. Because my opinion, before COVID, yeah, I felt I wanted to harm myself. I wanted to harm myself. I wanted to do some serious damage to myself. Especially in 2015. But I didn't let that happen. I feel basically today, throughout the last decade, we've been through, especially under the 14 years under the Tories, Nigel Farage is going to bring back our country back. Not the way it was 30 years ago, but the way it was 20 years ago. A reasonable, diverse country. And a reasonable, diverse country where everybody can mature their potential and start to move their lives around. And basically, my opinion is, give them massive, massive control over people who basically, who are not demonising our society, who are not demonising our wealth, who are not demonising, I can tell you something, basically, yeah. I watched a lot of dangerous people in my lifetime, basically, of these last 5 years or so. People like Tom Robinson are not part of the old deal, basically. I do believe that protest a few weeks ago, in my opinion, these people who are waving our flag love our country, love our democracy, love our children, love our grandchildren, love our spouses, love our country. And you know what, Risky, though? You can say anything you want about freedom, but the ultimate freedom is if you are more likely to be in freedom, to be in disrepair, to show what you're actually made of as a country or we can achieve as a country. Yes, you have to follow some basic rules. The rules are, if you don't want to spend too much money, you don't spend too much money than you actually have to. You have to spend too much cash unless you really wanted to. If you don't really want to spend too much on your actual wealth, basically, I don't believe you should do. But it's the actual narrative we are trying to stop in our society today. People who wave our flag, knowing these people are not far right, who love our country, who love our traditionaries, who love our monument, who love our Winston Churchill statue, people who celebrate our culture, celebrate our livelihoods, celebrate the technology we have on our phones, our TVs, our laptops, our social media platforms, basically. In my opinion, though, I feel like our society right now, and what I saw with Charlie Kirk a couple of weeks ago, was another spare of the moment. And I really feel like this. And the reason why I think maybe Elon Musk said about a year ago, basically, civil war is inevitable in the UK. Because I think over the next couple of summers, I think the Prime Minister has to really, really listen to this, in my opinion. I think the cultural war in terms of mass immigration in this country is going to be more worse than you've never seen since the civil rights era back in the last century. And you know what, basically though, yeah, it's not white. And I believe Elon Musk is bringing out the freedom that I dreamt about. Too much freedom can cost you too much, basically. Freedom can cost you too much as a society. Freedom of speech can cost you not freedom of speech, too much freedom. Having that too much freedom is basically like saying being in a hot bath, basically. If the hot bath is really, really hot, it's really, really hot. If the bath saying it's really, really cold, it's really, really cold. Just like the weather. And the fact that basically we have to basically draw a line to where our freedom of speech actually is in our society, where it's too free to basically beat the amount of our society, not upon mind, but on the soul of the person, of the perpetrator who is doing all these things, the person who knows from right from wrong, to love or hate, to tyranny to not tyranny, establishment to anti-establishment, a movement which can inspire tens of thousands of people in our society. People who understand what it means to be British. People who don't like the word woke. People who understand woke should know that woke is not going to beat this century. Woke is not going to beat up this century because we're going to stand up to it. We're going to store trust in woke. We're going to not woke. So we're going to sorry, one verse on there. We're going to stand up to woke. We're going to stand up to the 21st century on people's on their minds basically day in day out, and that is what Nigel Farage is intended to do. And I believe strong-heartedly, because it is my 25th birthday, and I've only got another few more minutes left, basically, and I'm also left, yeah, that if our society doesn't become a more prosperous, reasonably freedom society, then I believe civil war will be inevitable if we don't grow a backbone and don't grow don't grow a spine up somebody's backside. I believe basically, though, we don't have a standard chance as basically, as millions of people in Ukraine are fighting every single day to keep our lives, fighting to keep their country together. And I thank all our military people in our armed forces, in our armed services, and all those people who care about our country. And also other countries such as Italy, Japan, China, Germany, Italy, France, all those countries who care about our country, but mostly though don't understand what our country has become over the last 10 years. I feel, regardless if you are feeling it too right, our country has got to have more stability over the next decade and more than the next decade's revolution. And I really really hope, coming in this decade, after probably 5 prime ministers in this decade, I hope Nigel Farage wins the next general election and bring back Britain to what we should do as our prosperous country, our neutral country, and our saviour to our country. Thank you.